Okay, we're going to continue our video series on the Carolina Core, and today our spotlight will be on the problem space expert, which is the first of the three roles that we're defining for creating software and building teams that can make some great software. All right. So what we'll be doing today is we'll do a broad overview of the problem space expert. We'll talk about the goals that this role has before they get to the build step. We will lay out a template to help them accomplish that goal. And then lastly, we will talk about some career advancement paths. So where would you go from this role if you liked it and wanted to pursue career paths and job opportunities? Which job opportunities kind of align with some of the skill sets that you will have or you will gain building software in this role? All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so our problem space expert. Again, no prior technical skill is required. Willingness to learn is a thing that will be very helpful. We want to increase your technical ability, but you don't have to have it to start. And this is one of the reasons why if you come to Code for Greensboro and you don't have any technical background, we'll likely start you off in the problem space expert role. To help you in communicating which problems you're facing or that you want to build software around, and then we'll be able to help you choose a more technical role moving off from that. The one requirement here is that the problem space expert, when they're on a team, they must be close to the problem. So ideally, the problem space expert is the person that has the problem. And this is important because they will be the ones that will are the best at effectively communicating to the internal team and to external members what the problem is and help focus on that. So this role's fundamental skill set is learning to talk about their problem space. And I specifically call this a skill set because I want to drive home that this will take practice. You are not going to be good at talking about your problem right off the bat. And so we want to encourage you to practice this. Practice talking about what makes the problem space you have chosen hard. And why is that problem important? You will need to answer these questions before resources are allocated to building out your software. So I think it will help you in a lot of facets of life, just learning how to talk about the problems you face. And definitely here, because we want to learn to talk about the problem that the technology or software that we develop, what's it solving? Why spend the time? Why spend the time to make the software? All right, during the build process, and we'll have an entire video that goes into what happens during the actual build, but to lay some broad strokes here is the problem space expert will be the person that helps focus the team on solving a specific problem. So they do that by explaining the problem, explaining it in depth for the different members of the team. They're going to approve the design doc. So someone's going to explain to them what the software could do in order to help. They will be a primary tester of the software because ideally they have the problem. So they will be able to tell you whether or not the software helps them solve this problem. And they will work with other external users. So if other people have the problem and you want to see whether or not this software works for a larger group, it's going to be the problem space expert that is deeply involved with that. Their primary work products before and during the build are written talks at levels 1 and 2, and we'll cover what that level means in just a second. A level 1 explanation video. So we want to encourage our problem space expert to get used to talking and recording their thoughts. They give a presentation on the product or a presentation on the problem. And then 3, the product design document, which they will work with the experienced design analyst to approve. All right. So the goal of the problem space expert, to be able to give a level 1, 2, and 3 talk at least a tier 2 and preferably at a tier 3. And again, this will take practice. So I've said some of these words before, so what do I mean by a level 1, 2, and 3 talk? So levels here are talking about the depth of detail. So a level 1 talk is just a 30-second talk about your problem. Level 2, 2 to 4 minutes, and a level 3, 8 to 10 minutes. The tiers here refer to how familiar your audience needs to be in order to understand your talk. So a tier 1 means that they have to be very familiar with your problem in order to understand it. And that might mean that the only audience that understands your talk at first might just be you, because you're the one that has the most familiarity with it. Don't be discouraged. That is a starting point. So you start with giving this talk, and only people that are really familiar with it, maybe heard it a couple of times, understand what you're saying. Your goal is to move it to a tier 2 talk, so where you just need a little bit of familiarity to understand it. And then the ultimate prize here is that tier 3, where even an audience with low familiarity with the problem can understand your talk. All right. So the ways that you practice this skill is you record yourself giving your talks at the different levels. And then you have to listen to your recordings. This will be difficult for a lot of people. This step in particular, because we are not used to hearing the sounds of our own voice externally. And, you know, a lot of us do not like public speaking, even just giving a presentation. So think about this as useful practice that will help you in your career and in a whole lot of other things. My suggestion is, after you have listened to your recording, write down what you said word for word, and then write down how you feel about the flow. This way, when you come to Code for Greensboro, or when you go to your team, when you give your talk to other people, you can say, you know, I don't think the flow worked at this spot in the talk. Can you help me? If they have some familiarity with her talk, they might be able to give you some suggestions about how to make that flow work better. So those are your homework assignments, so that you can be a better problem space expert before you join a team. You should be able to give at least a level 1 and 2 talk at tiers 2 and 3 before you get into any of the build steps. That will save you a lot of development time, because you, as the person that is saying what problem the software should build, you have to be able to communicate that to the people that are coding it and designing it. Otherwise, they might design software that doesn't really solve your problem. So for that, this is going to be an area where most people struggle. So here is a little bit of a template that I think will help you as you first start developing your level 1 and 2 talks. And let's just go right into an example. So here is a client that I've worked with. And like most, when they're first talking about the problem, I tend to find out that I kind of have to prompt them a little bit to give them a prompt question. And so for a particular piece of software, I asked them, what problem is it solving? And so this was the prompt so that they could talk about the problem. And let's listen to it here. And as you listen to it, keep these two questions in mind. What or who is the person that has the problem, and what is the problem? And see if you can get that information from their response. All right, here we go.
Well, it solves a lot of problems. It solves a lot of small problems that add up to, I guess, my ultimate goal, which is to make make a living being a furry artist. A lot of those small problems are like keeping all the like setting up forms for people to answer all the questions, so I have all the information there. I can look at between responses and determine which ones I actually want to make. It saves me time that I want to spend working on commissions instead.
Okay, so from that, think about these questions again. Do you understand who has the problem? And do you understand what problem this particular product is trying to solve? My guess is that from this, you'd have to have a high familiarity with this particular problem in order to really understand this explanation. And so that's why I think of this as a tier 1, requiring that high familiarity. And we're going to work on getting this from a tier 1 response to a tier 3, where even just listening to it now, you'll be able to understand who has the problem and what the problem is. So let us go and look at a template here. So what I'm going to do from here is provide the set of talk components and a set of transitional phrases. And really, these are the only things that I gave the client. So the talk components. Every level of talk, level 1, 2, and 3, there are 3 important components that each talk needs to have. 1 is a set the context. 2 is to give a fact or facts about that context. And then the third component is to explain why the facts that you just gave are important. Right? So those are the components of the talk. And then to help a problem space expert discuss these components, I like to come up with some transitional phrases so that it will just help you transition from the context to giving facts to explaining importance. So to set the context, a transitional phrase I like to use is I am a, because ideally the problem space expert is the person that has the problem, so it kind of gives you some context. To give facts, like most, and there are other transitional phrases, but that one worked well in this setting. And then finally, this transitional phrase of this becomes an issue when. All right. And now we are going to go back to the same client, and all I did here was give them these components and help them reorder what they just said into a more tight package for those that might not have a lot of familiarity to help them understand the problem. So keep the same questions in mind. Who has the problem and what problem do they have? And we're going to listen to what I think of as a tier 3 response.
So I'm a digital illustrator and content creator. And like most content creators, I maintain an online presence in multiple locations. This becomes an issue when I want to open up for commissions,
Being on multiple platforms leads to conversations in multiple locations. These conversations contain a lot of important details about the commissions that I have to end up keeping track of all inside my head. When commission work is 60% of my income, this becomes a major issue.
Okay. Hopefully you can see the difference there, right? Like, you can actually see where the transitional phrases led into each of the components of the talk, of the context. Now you know who has the problem. Who has the problem is a digital illustrator and content creator. You know a single fact that as a content creator, they have online profiles on multiple platforms in multiple locations. And you also have why that fact is important, which is that when they open for commissions, which ends up being 60% of their income, they're having conversations in different locations. All right, from here, this is where magic can happen, because now that we have a concise way of talking about the problem, we can start applying technology and software to solve this individual client's problem. So, let us continue on here, and let's talk about some career advancement. Oh, I forgot. I wanted to give one more example that wasn't a client, but that I actually saw written down from a Wikipedia article. And I think this is a perfect context, fact, and importance of the fact here. And so here we go. Kelly and his wife ran a dance school for children. Context. Which taught the waltz clog, a popular and easy to learn tap dance routine. This is our fact. Why is that fact important? This routine, however, proved too difficult for the younger students to master. To solve this problem. Okay? And I love this, because this leads into how you solve the problem that is laid out in these 3-step components. And so this is actually the history behind the popular children's song, I'm a Little Teapot. And so you can see this talking about a problem that's not even in the technology space, how you can use these same setup to be good at talking about the problem. So I love that. I figured it was good to give a non-technology example, and that is great. So let us talk about career advancement. So after you have familiarity with the problem space expert role, what are some careers that you can use this kind of skill set for? And so if your current position is as a nonprofit service provider, like a frontline staff, or a community advocate, or maybe you are a future entrepreneur, start with the skill set here of the problem space expert. Think about what is the problem that either you face trying to provide the service, or that a person coming to you seeking a service, what are they facing? From the community advocate role, who in the community has the problem and why is it important to them? As a future entrepreneur, think about who has a problem, because they're going to be your core client or customer or any of those. So think about what is it that what problem does your customer have that your future business will help solve? Right? And so thinking about career paths, here are a couple of career paths and some job titles that you might want to explore if you love the problem space expert role. That is a product manager, a business analyst, or a market researcher. For two of these, the business analyst and the market researcher, and actually the product manager as well, these are also careers that have a lot of overlap with the experienced design analyst. And we will talk about that coming up shortly in a spotlight. So keep that in mind, that there are these career path overlaps. And because of that, I would really recommend starting off as a problem space expert, moving to the experienced design analyst role to get some more technical ability as you explore these possible career paths. But a core focus of each of them is they know a lot about the problem that either their product or their business is solving for people, or is solving for a group of people in a market. So with that, I hope this dive into the Carolina Core Problem Space Expert was really helpful for you.